Hi, I'm Brittany Ashley, your host of Breaking Norms, Building Dreams, your guide through this transformative journey in both business and life. This is your place crafted for dreamers, doers, or anyone who has been told they can't. Get ready as we challenge those narratives together. You're tuning in live to the United Public Radio Network, airing on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. We are streaming on all the popular platforms every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me for a candid and thought-provoking conversation celebrating your unique journey because you are worth it. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. You're listening to Breaking Norms, Building Dreams. I'm your host, Brittany Ashley, and we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Get ready to escape the next hour with me, with Jill, to break norms and build dreams. Hi, Jill. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm so excited to have you. For some of the listeners who don't know who Jill is an author, speaker, and a host of Grow Like a Mother podcast, which is absolutely amazing. If you have not listened to it, please go listen. Her book about happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise is available now anywhere. Is it anywhere? Anywhere on Amazon? Amazing.
Everywhere.
We'll talk more about that in the show, and also what you do, because I know a lot about you. I've been listening to your podcast, but let's tell all the listeners a bit more about who Jill is and your podcast and everything else you've been up to.
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's kind of a wild journey, but I'm a mom and I'm a business owner, and my business is centered around helping moms grow, hence the name Grow Like a Mother of the podcast. And what I am really good at, my kind of secret sauce, is personalizing things for mom, specifically in the realm of time management. So I have a lot of different things that I do, but time management coaching is sort of my number one thing right now that I'm really excited about. And of course, I have just released a book, I guess, in November last year, November 23. So it's not just anymore.
Yes, because when we chatted, it was it was just kind of rolling out there.
Yeah, but it's been so cool to see the journey of becoming an author, and the feedback that I'm getting is really fun because the book is set up like a page a day kind of read. So for moms, it's really easy. You don't have to sit down and read cover to cover because that's such a challenge. I always hear moms saying that they want to read more, but they don't have time. And I'm like, no problem. I got you.
It's true. I'm such a slow reader. And so just to know it's like a page, I'm like, oh yes, I can probably do that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, well, share more about how you started, Jill, like a little bit of your background so everyone can kind of get to know a bit more about you.
Of course. So I was a business major and ended up in the hospitality industry for most of my career right out of university, up until I had my second baby. And I decided during my maternity leave with my second baby that I was not going to go back downtown to work at this big luxury hotel in sales where it was like nights and evenings and weekends and stress. And I'm like, you know what? No, I live out in the country now. I'm not doing that commute. I've got 2 kids now. So I decided that I was actually going to dive into entrepreneurship for the first time, which had always been a dream. But my first go at it was a ladies' consignment store for clothing. And I had a girlfriend who did that on the other end of Canada in the East Coast. And so she was kind of my mentor to walk me through it. And doors were supposed to open in April of 2020, which is really crappy timing for retail business.
Yeah.
So we eventually got like all of the permits sorted and the city office opened again to give me my business license and all that. And I saw that business through over the course of a year and a half from the whole life cycle of a business, from conception to deconstruction, if you will. And what I learned from that experience was that entrepreneurship was in my blood, but it wasn't clothing I was really passionate about. It was the community I was building of women coming together.
That's that.
Yeah. And then from there started the podcast, and the book came along a couple years later. And all along that time, I've been coaching moms to step into the driver's seat of their own life and make sure that they're prioritizing themselves.
Yes, along with entrepreneurship, which in itself is a big hurdle to juggle all of that in itself. And then 2 little ones, 1 little one, 5 little ones. I'm not sure how many some of the listeners have out there. But like one of our subcontractors on our team has 4 kiddos. And so sometimes I'm just like, oh, we need to get your systems in place a little bit too. So then you feel such more relaxed. And let's tap into that a little bit, because I know you're all about systems and I'm all about systems. And I can't say enough great things about systems. And I find like a lot of people, they're like, oh, I don't want to lose that customer service touch. But the thing is, you need to look at it. You need to have to be some like sane as well while you're building a business with kids.
Yeah, totally. I think it's what saves us. Because with the system, what you're getting is you're getting a hack, right? You're getting a way for something to get done without you mentally needing to think about it each time, which, as women and as moms, we often will carry the mental load of the entire family. And it's always goes back to this example I like to think of, like, well, what do you want for dinner? I want you not to ask me what to have for dinner, right? Like, I just want to not make the decision. And so that's why I love systems, is because you can make the decision once on how you want something to go.
Yeah.
Whether it's, a system in your business with a piece of software or a flow, or whether it is, having the same t-shirt and jeans that you wear every Monday, or tacos every Tuesday for dinner. It doesn't matter what the system is, but it alleviates that one decision. And the more systems we put in, the less decisions we have to make. And it really frees up space for creativity, which is what we're really looking for as business owners.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's important to kind of keep in mind too, it's okay to adjust the systems as you go. And sometimes you're not always going to be able to map it all out from the beginning. Because I find when I've talked to a few and they're like, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start, and get overwhelmed. And then they just kind of shut down and they don't actually sometimes even implement. But sometimes we can just start small. So if you're just starting a business, what are like the little things to kind of systemize that? So maybe the discovery calls, maybe there's only set amount of days. So putting boundaries in place are really important too, knowing the boundaries, like your non-negotiables, I like to say, and then building systems around those to help you kind of feel a little bit more control. I know with myself, when I first started my business, I was like, how am I going to run this business with an 8-month-old? And who still needs me, still breastfeeding, all these things, and still trying to build a foundational business. So then I don't have to go back to a 9-to-5. And then I was like, oh, because luckily I worked in tech. So I was like, you know what, this is where the automation needs to come in. And I kind of went on my own venture. And like right now, this year is my years to like, the business now has been about 5 years, give or take. And I was like, the system doesn't work for me anymore. I'm starting to do things a lot more manual than I need to. And there's no point of having any systems in place if you're finding that you're doing like the stop go game. So like I was just telling you before we came on live here, this is the year for system cleanup, system refresh, brand refresh, all the fun things. And I'm excited.
And that's kind of been the same for me, actually. I finally left my 9-to-5 in February of this year, and I'm like full-time. Yeah, it's great. So full-time entrepreneuring now. And the thing that I loved most was having the time to like set a solid foundation for the business, so that when I want to gear up, I'm ready. And it's not like I'm scrambling, and it's not like I can't keep up, because when I want to turn that faucet on, and I'm not, I didn't want to turn the faucet on until I knew that everything was in place. And that was always really important to me, like just in my body, feeling safe in my business, Yeah.
And I find, I love systems. I can't say enough great things about systems as you do, but with the system piece, I find that a lot do get overwhelmed with it. And it's good to just kind of get on strategy calls, or just talking with maybe other fellow entrepreneurs that are within your industry, just to kind of pick their brain, to kind of see what they've done. If this is something completely new to you, will help you kind of feel a bit more at ease. But for me, myself, like looking back, I'm like, I've changed this business so many times that I feel like I always joke that I'm like a hippie, but I didn't know that you were in the hospitality industry. That's so interesting because that's also, I came from that background as well.
Oh,
And
wow.
so myself, I'm always like customer service driven. So
Mhm.
how can I implement that within a system, time frame or anything like that? So maybe you have some input on there.
Yeah, I think something that you said earlier really I want to make sure people hear is that you can change your systems.
Hmm.
They're there to support you for the season you're in. And when your season changes, not if, like when, because everything is always updated, you need to make sure you're updating your systems and making sure they match, right? It's like as you go through your life, you update your wardrobe and make sure that it still represents you and fits you and feels good, right? You update your nutrition plan or your exercise plan, or
Hmm.
you update your relationships. Sometimes you update the way you parent. So making sure that with our systems, we're really checking in,
Mhm.
often, whether it be every quarter or whatever feels right for your business, but saying, hey, does this still support me in my goals? Are my goals the same or have they changed? And
Mhm.
trust yourself to make the changes that are necessary. And you can't feel, I guess bad might be a weird word, but don't feel badly that you are changing things because it's all growth towards that next thing. You're constantly changing. That's what business is about.
And I think also to add to that, think of what makes sense to you. So for me, like I don't have my phone number on the website. Mm-mm. I will never have my phone number on the website. One, because I don't like phones. I think working in the industry, the tech industry, I was like, because I was admin for a bit there, I was just hated the phones. So just kind of like a PTSD a little bit triggering for me. So I'm like, I don't want phones. And you know what? It's okay if you don't want phones. You can still mold the business into what makes sense to you.
Yeah.
And so, no, but I remember I was talking to someone and they're like, or no, they sent me a message actually, because I have like a chat bar up on my website and they're like, why don't you have it? Like they're getting angry with me. And I was like, this is like the biggest red flag ever. I
Yeah.
wish not to book you as a client because there's a reason why I have no phone number is because I also take care of my kids Monday to Friday when they're not in school or drop offs, pickups. I can't necessarily attend the phones all the time. And so the phones just don't make sense to me. I lot them in when I put those boundaries in place. And so just being really aware of your boundaries and your non-negotiables with having kids, parenting is really it's an okay to say no is what I'm trying to say.
Oh my God, yes. And it's okay to ask for help when needed too. Like those are the two things I find that most of my clients just it's so hard to say no and it's so hard to ask for help, but
Yeah.
creating the boundaries, and I like to really think about boundaries as instead of putting up a wall and saying no to something, boundaries can feel also like um discovering or claiming what it is that you need and figuring out how to get that thing,
Yeah.
right? So a boundary could be, I need this uninterrupted time with my kids where I'm not worrying about the phone when it's dinner time or bath time or whatever. And so
Mhm.
how do I get that thing? The boundary is making sure that my phone number is not on the website, right? The boundary isn't, I refuse to answer the phone. I don't want to talk to my clients. And sorry, this is my way or the highway. That's not the boundary. The boundary is based on what you need in your
Mhm.
life to make it a sustainable business so that you can show up from a place of like balance and be able to create the product and the service that you're trying to provide for people.
Yeah. I know you and I talked a bit about this too. Like, my kiddo is going in to get autism testing, and we're going through the venture of understanding more of neurodiversity. And I am neurodiverse. I'm self-diagnosed with ADHD, but I do have dyslexia. And so finding more about that as me as a mom, and then trying to navigate that with the kiddos, like having those time structures are so important because taking them to the different doctor's appointments or just being a little bit more present is so important. So maybe you can shed some light on some time management strategies for anybody
Oh, I
listening.
know. Yes. And I mean, we can even tailor it to like momming an autistic kid time management
Mhm.
strategies because I am there too. But the thing I like to remind people about time management is that it only works if it works for you. So there are strategies out there aplenty. Like you can Google it, and there are pages and pages and pages of time management strategies. But the thing is, not all of them are going to work for you. I'm actually working on, it's coming out next month, but it's a quiz, like to determine what is going to be the best set of tools for your specific personality type for time management. A couple that I find are universally useful for people, though, are to eat your frog. Have you heard of this phrase?
No. Yeah, just explain more.
I know it sounds so goofy. So there's this productivity consultant named Brian Tracy, and he kind of put a marketing spin or like a productivity spin on an old fable about if the first thing you do every single day is eat a live frog, then nothing worse can happen for the day. That's kind of how the old fable goes. Okay. And so Brian Tracy says, okay, let's think about your frog as a thing on your to-do list that you're procrastinating on, that you don't want to do. The thing that is most important, but you keep putting it off. And so eat your frog is this idea of each and every day choosing the most important thing on your to-do list and doing that first, because it's probably not going to take you as long as you think. It's probably going to take you a lot less time than you've wasted procrastinating on it already, right? It always, if you accomplish a task first thing, especially one that you are feeling hesitant towards doing, you get some momentum from having accomplished the task, right? And so you go into your day having accomplished this big thing. And even if it takes all of your energy and you really did hate it and you just took everything to get through it, you know, you've done the most important thing that day. And if you have no energy for anything else, that's okay. You did the big thing.
Yeah. I like that. That's so true. Yeah. I'm just like thinking about that right now. This whole weekend, I've been like hyper focusing on trying to get everything in place, because I'm really hoping this summer I can like take a little bit more of a step back a little bit and just know that the systems are finally clean or the new website's up. So I've been pushing really hard, but it's been hard. But I like your idea there with, is it called the frog approach then?
Yeah. Eat your frog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eat your frog approach. Because really sometimes you don't want to start, like with me, like I know my bookkeeper is like waiting for me to get back to them, and I'm trying to get everything in place too, because for us, it's considered, we have to do our taxes in end of June. That's when we fall on for the corporate tax. And luckily, like I was smart to pick that time frame, so it's not like at the craziness of personal taxes and then going into the wintertime. I purposely picked then because I knew it's like the perfect moment of chaos. But I'm like thinking here, I'm like, oh, I just need to get that piece done. But then a part of me goes off to the other side.
Right.
Shiny objects syndrome.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I'll just do all the 100 other unimportant things and feel like I'm super productive because I can say I did 100 things. But if they're not moving the needle to get you toward getting your, books to the accountant, then they're not important.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the thing, is we need to really start to think about our time in terms of value exchange almost, right? I think burnout happens when the energy we put out isn't being reciprocated back to us. And so we really need to make sure that we're focusing our time on things that are valuable to us. So we're kind of getting that return, not necessarily a tangible return, but a value return nonetheless. So that if you're spending time, cleaning your house, but at the end of the day, it's always just, if you've got little ones like we do, continuing to be messy the second after you finish it, you're not getting the value return. So that's not a good use of your time, right? Same thing as you would consider budgeting your money. Consider budgeting your time around things and putting the most important things in first and then working the rest around. It's kind of like, have you heard of the analogy of like stones, rocks, and sand?
No.
So it's this idea of like, if you have a cup, right? And the big, you have like 3 stones, let's say, on how to spend your time. So your big stones or rocks I guess the rocks are the big ones. The most important things you need to do, or the most things that are valuable to, like family, freedom, fun, something like that. So you put your big rocks in the cup first.
Okay.
And then you put in the stones. So the stones are the smaller things with regards to your time and your values. So that might be like Getting out in nature or like having friends and working out. So the stones then fall, but there's space under the rocks. So you can, the stones will fall. And then the sand is everything else. But if you had put the sand in first and done everything else first, and then put the medium stones in, you wouldn't have space at the top of the glass for the big rocks, the important thing. So it's the same idea, is that you put the important things first in your glass and everything else will find space, but your important things are done first.
Yeah. I feel like the more you explain that, I was like, I feel like I've heard this, or maybe I'm having like a deja vu moment. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't explain it very well, but the idea is like, do the important things first and there will be room for the other things.
Yeah.
But if you do it the opposite way around, there's often not enough time dedicated at the end to the important things. So do it first.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's so true. I find, especially with like ADHD, I kind of go all over the place.
Yeah.
And so like just trying to take that moment to really focus sometimes on the important things is super hard. Like, for example, one of the things I'm trying to do is create new portals for clients. And I just need to stand in front of a camera. And the thing is, these videos need to be done because everything like the automation's done, but the videos for these pieces are not done. So I can't push anything live. So it's like this vicious circle.
Yeah. I actually had a really great session with an ADHD. She calls herself a neurospicy millennial entrepreneur. And she has ADHD, and she was trying to get a handle on like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. I make my own schedule, but like I have ADHD. And so it's really hard for me to figure out what to do with all my time and like create systems that I feel good doing. And what we came up with for her, one of the tools was to make sure that that frog or that thing she wants to do that she's been putting off, that there's an element of fun attached to it. Yes. So I'm like, okay, either if it's something to do with writing, like grab stickers and fun colored highlighters and markers, or if it's recording something, if you sit at your computer and watch maybe or record, grab a bowl of ice cream or like some popcorn or something and bring that in, or whatever feels fun to you. But if you add that element, that's going to help secure it together. Yeah.
Yeah, because I get bored so fast.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. Like I always joke, like I'm the worst virtual assistant if you ever need me, because if I know how to do it, then I'm done. Like I'm like, it's done, one and done. To the next. Totally. What else can I learn? I never figured out why I didn't fit into a 9-to-5 until like being an entrepreneur. So I was like, no wonder I didn't fit in, because I needed that like dopamine to make sure that I was constantly learning or whichever to propel forward. I just want to talk about balancing responsibilities a little bit, because as moms, parents, we have a lot of responsibilities. How do you balance and juggle everything in between?
I always like to think of balance as a verb, not as like a destination. So it's something I'm constantly doing, is like balancing all the priorities, because everything is changing in terms of its importance, right? Depends on the timing. It depends, if there's a kid that fell down and is bleeding, that's obviously going to take more importance over the email that has to go out today because there's a live person bleeding versus an email. Even if I set myself up for a timeline, that can wait. But if there's no bleeding child, that email is top on my list, right? So it depends, and it's a constant balancing act. But something that I find most helpful is making sure that we're resting in the proper way so that we can show up when we do need to put in extra energy in one place or another. We're coming at it from this place of feeling more full from ourselves, and not trying to just run on empty. Some of that can look like, each person's rest is going to look different based on a lot of factors. I specifically like to look at their human design type and figure out what kind of rest is suited for their their basic energy type. But asking for help, creating breaks, making sure that you're prioritizing rest in a way that feels good to you. Like someone who might be a generator in human design isn't going to do well with sitting and meditating for their rest. They could think of nothing more like less restful than that. They are going to rest by like going for a walk or doing the dishes or having some sort of busy work to keep their body busy. Right? Yeah.
That's me.
Sound familiar? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what exactly I am, because what was the name of that you just said for the human design?
Generator.
Yes. I'm a manifesting generator.
Okay. So a manifesting generator is an interesting one because you're kind of a combination of the two, and you could fall on either end of the spectrum, like more generator like or more manifestor like, right?
Mhm.
And there's also like when I'm talking about productivity and work with entrepreneurs, one thing I always remind them too is like, listen to your cue to stop. And so for a generator or a manifesting generator, that cue is frustration. Like when you're feeling frustrated, stop what you're doing, walk away. You're not going to make any more progress. It's more productive for you to stop, take 5 minutes, do something else, and come back to it than it is to power through. So those cues are different for each energy type. But yeah, something I'm diving in a lot more to lately is kind of syncing up the human design and time management. It's kind of fun.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started kind of navigating more into that this year, and just seeing what I am. And it's so interesting to kind of read that more. So anyone listening, you can definitely just Google it, use Google as your friend. And there's free quizzes to kind of see where you kind of line up. Actually, one of my subcontractors was like, have you ever done your Myers-Briggs model? And I was like, I feel like I never get the same results though.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Those kinds of, it's funny because like an Enneagram or a Myers-Briggs or something like that, it depends on where you're at in your life. Or if you've ever done those, like, I used to get corporately trained on this all the time in hospitality, like your colors, they had like red, yellow, blue, green. And every job I was in, I had a different color, and it was based on like my role. If I was a detail oriented job, like maybe I was a coordinator for somebody, then I was more blue, which was detail oriented. But if I moved into like a sales role, then I'd be more yellow. And because I was interacting with people as my role. So it is really interesting. And there are other ones like, let's say, human design or astrology or something like that, where it's set based on your birthday. So they don't change. But with those, what changes is like what's happening in the stars, so there's always moving pieces. It's so interesting.
That's so interesting. I love that. Yeah. We're already at the 30-minute mark for those just tuning in. You're listening to Breaking Norms, Building Dreams. We're live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Can you believe it? We're already 30 minutes in. My next question is self-love and well-being. As moms, it's very difficult for time.
It's so hard because of it, especially in the beginning of your baby's life. Each and every baby, you're going to experience this over and over, is that they need you so much more in the beginning. Of course they do, right? But as they transition out and become a little bit more independent, moms sometimes have a hard time transitioning out of being needed. And even if they can allow themselves a little bit more space, they don't remember what they like to do in that free time that they're not used to having anymore. I like to give moms an opportunity to start slowly with this sort of self-love, self-care, time for self by each week just finding 60 minutes. And if you can't, then 30 minutes is a good start. But like, put it in your calendar. It doesn't need to be the same time or day each week. Just once in the week, make sure that you are putting aside time, but with no expectation of what you do with it. And you can show up in that time and just ask yourself, like, what do I need? Like, do I need a nap? Do I need to call a girlfriend? Do I need to watch funny YouTube videos and get a laugh? Do I need to move my body, or do I need rest? Do I want to read and do something like for my mind, or do I want to zone out and maybe try to meditate? Is it, like showing up with no expectation prior of how you're going to feel in that moment, and allowing yourself to start to just trust, okay, what do I need in that minute, in that moment? Because then you're practicing this skill of prioritizing what you need, even if it's for a short time.
And that's something I'm still trying to navigate for myself. And like, let's just talk a little bit too about mom guilt, because I feel like if I take that self time, then the mom guilt comes in. But then I'm doing like all the other things on top of it. And like with my ADHD, especially this year, I don't know what it is, but it's to the point where my anxiety's been like so high that I'm just like, it's easier for me to just sit there and watch TikTok to zone out and like regenerate a little bit. But then I also feel guilty. So it's like the which one?
Well, I think that like the zoning out on TikTok can be it can be a really good way to rejuvenate and regenerate yourself, right? It's a way of like clearing the mind. You literally do not need any cognitive function to be able to just sit there and zone out, right? But the guilt comes, I think, from not feeling like you use that time to do something. That can happen a lot. Or a lot of moms I talk to feel guilty for spending time in their business and away from their kids, especially if they have something that is during a time where they would normally want to be with their kid. Like maybe they have a speech that they have to give in an evening one week, right? And it's really good for their business, but even though they're getting something really valuable in return for their time spent there, they still have that guilt about missing out. And I think that the way to remember two different really important things here is the first, don't compare how much time you're spending with your kids or at your job or with whatever you're feeling guilty about with what anyone else is doing, right? I think that social media can give us this warped perception. I know this is not a new concept. We all know that we get each other's highlight reels on social media, right?
Yeah.
But we all have to make these decisions on where we spend our time, whether you're Beyonce or, Hannah in Nevada. It's like you all have the same 24 hours. So whether you're hiring a nanny or getting help from the grandparents or working 3 jobs or you're with your kids home all day, it doesn't mean one is better than the other, but you can't compare your situation, right? The second piece of it from mom guilt is really making sure that you're focused instead of the lack of time that you're spending on one area, about the value of you being somewhere else. So for example, if you are putting time in your business and it's taking away from your kids, for example, you are showing your kids by modeling behavior for them that women work, you can support yourself, it's okay to follow your dreams, you work hard, you get results, right? And so putting it in that frame of reference instead of I'm a bad mom because I'm not there tonight, right? You're actually giving a gift to your kids by modeling for them. And the same thing I think goes with any personal growth that you're doing, even if it's not business related, like sitting down and reading a book for 10 minutes while they sit and read a book for 10 minutes. You're showing them that it's okay to slow down and prioritize learning and enjoyment, right? And then
I like that.
It's okay to do that. And then they grow up with this whole different set of like, especially if you're doing these things, pre 7 years old, where their brains are just like taking in everything as truth. You build these little people who grow up to have a lot more tolerance for rest and for self-value and for going for their dreams and less guilt because they're seeing it from us. So
it's very true.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anyone listening, other parents are like,
we get it.
Because mom guilt is brought up quite a bit. And then the unfortunate thing is we, in this generation with social media, we do have a lot to compare ourselves to. And unfortunately, for women specifically, we have a lot sometimes of don't look like this, do X, Y, and Z. You should be wearing this, or you know what? It's just like endless. And so when you're starting to go on that social media, like downward spiral, it's really hard to sometimes get yourself out. So I think to remind people to like, remember that you never know what's happening behind the scenes is really important. And trying to put yourselves in other shoes and giving people that kind of grace as well and hold back judgments. Because I feel like sometimes we always go in that negative state. It's just ingrained in all of us. Sometimes we do unfortunately judge others, but how can we switch those narratives? So when we start going into that judgment state, to think more positively. I can't remember what I did. It was like it's a coaching technique for coaches, and we're all kind of broken up in different tiers. No matter what, we're all have judgment in us. There's another few pieces involved, but judgment is always the one. And he was saying, like, remember to take yourself, like your past picture of you when you're a kid, and what would you have told that kid of don't judge yourself because of X, Y, and Z. And so it starts to remind yourself to kind of go backwards a bit more, of taking those steps back, and also then try not to compare yourself to other people too.
Yeah.
You do.
I love that. And it's the same thing you like with your own kids. Just what would you tell your own kids in that situation, right? Or what would you want them, how would you want them to start going through their lives thinking about things with less judgment on themselves or on others, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. This is a funny thing that happened on the weekend. We're going to rewind this for my daughter's wedding if she ever gets married. So we got a phone call from the principal, and they're like, oh, we don't know how to tell you this, but your daughter ate some fertilizer.
Oh, God.
Like, oh. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I don't know what to say about this.
That's a first. Yeah.
I'm like, that's a first. And they're like, can we just make sure that we tell them not to eat things off the ground? I'm like, oh, 100%. That will be our first discussion when we get her. And I was like, you know what? She probably has been influenced. It's my first thought. And when I went to go pick her up, there she was, hand in hand with another little girl. I'm like, I knew it.
Yeah. And just like our kids are having these influences all the time, so are we, right? Like it's
exactly.
Yeah.
Would you just think the young self if you were influenced to go get told, by the way, she's fine. We call it poison control. All is good. It was just, apparently she didn't fully eat it. So we're good. Side note there, just in case anyone's very stressed out. But she was like, oh, well, because she did it, I did it. And so you have to start thinking too, just because you're a parent going through something and looking at social media because they did it doesn't make sense for you to do it. Yeah. Like maybe not eating fertilizer, but just to kind of put that a little bit more in perspective, a bit more.
Yeah. And even we can take that further and talk about trends as business owners, right? Especially in the lens of social media, in the TikTok reels or like the voiceovers or whatever the dance trend is, right? Like just because that's a thing that's out there doesn't mean that that is the right thing for your business. Like really remembering to trust in your brand, what feels natural and right to you, showing up in ways that are authentic instead of getting wrapped up in all of these because they're never going to stop. What does the algorithm say? What is the popular trending audio right now? It's like, if we can stay in our lane and focus on what we know works and what we know is true for us, we're always going to get better results than spinning our wheels trying to chase the shiny new thing.
100%. We just did like a brainstorming session, and this particular person was like, just talking about social media, being like, I feel like I need to really show up. I feel like I need to put my money and hire somebody to do social media. And I popped in and I was like, well, like, what's your return on investment? Does it make sense for you to actually be there? Because I'm going to tell you right now, you're probably putting money down the drain. I'd rather you show up that's more authentic to you, like you're just saying, and be true to who you want to be. So what do you like? And naturally, they love doing YouTube videos. And I was like, then do that.
Yeah.
And then you can cross promote those to other channels if you want to. Use like a social media management tool to cross promote. Make sure you're showing up right here, and that's your focus. And that's where you get your return on investment on. And voila, you're still tapping everywhere you need to, but you're still being authentic to who you are. Yeah. And I feel like, because there's so many marketers, there's so many pick a niche or all these things. I think, like, even to this day, I never niche down, and I'm a marketer.
Yeah.
I just say just whatever feels right. And if you feel like you're in alignment with those clients or those prospects, then really nurture them, and one thing will lead to another. Yeah, with the business and momhood, I want to ask about being present, because we talked about self love, balancing time management, but how about being present?
That's a really hard one because we've got like, I always like to think of them as like B reels in the back of your mind. Like, even though you're in something, there's other stories playing. Oh, I gotta do this. Can't remember. Can't forget this. Or what am I gonna do about this thing? Oh yeah, the school form that needs to be signed, and like all of these stories, thoughts, and seemingly important things running in our brains at all time, which prevent us from being present. And this morning I realized, like, our phones, obviously. I'm sitting on the couch with my son trying to check an email while he's doing something on his phone, and he's just quiet. But then he's like, well, watch this thing with me. And I'm like, yeah, but one sec. I just need to, like, real quick do this one thing, right?
Yeah.
But no one else is up, and it's this sweet, quiet time that just he and I have together. And I'm like, okay, like, you can do this email later, but really I'm like, oh my God, I just need 2 seconds. But to be present with him in that moment requires me to sort of sacrifice a little bit in terms of the other thing on my plate. But knowing that, I always like to set up my day to know that I have 20 minutes set aside to do those types of admin things in pockets throughout the day, maybe, so that I'm not stressed about, okay, if I don't do it now, that's fine. I'm not going to forget, because I know coming up, I've got that time set aside to do that. That really helps me. Another thing that really helps me to be present in whatever role I'm in, whether it be like girlfriend, mom, business owner, is having like an opening routine and a closing routine for the job. So for example, when I sit down to work, I always like light a candle, set an intention for what I want to get done, or like how I want to show up in that time. And when I'm done my work for that time, it's always, okay, blow out the candle, shut the computer screen, like, off I go. At the times where I'm transitioning into picking my kids up, it's always, okay, specifically like after school pickup, because I've had my brain going a million places all day for my job, right? But I pick them up. I'm like, okay, bring all that energy back to me. How do I want this next 2-3 hours to go with these kids? What have they been experiencing today? And just like switching my mind to put the focus on them. And then once they're in bed, whatever the case is for my next job, right? Or on the weekends is different. And each piece of my day throughout my business is different as well. So I find that having something to anchor you into starting and finishing the role that you're doing for the hour is really helpful.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm still learning to, like, we're almost, I can't believe, almost a full year into school. And I'm still trying to like finesse what those kind of look like. Cause I just feel like, oh, construction gets in the way. And then I'm actually half an hour late to get work done. And so it just feels like it kind of moves my day even more, and I have to jig it more. And then like it's always a hard stop at 2. So at the end of the day, I'm only working 5 hours.
Right.
I'm lucky in with meetings probably. So that means, let's be honest, because I'm trying to put better boundaries for myself in this. But sometimes I shove 5 meetings in. Wow. So that takes up a lot of time. Yeah. And then really I only have about 1 hour of work. And then I have to go pick up the kids. And then it's like going back into work at 7 o'clock at night. So for me though, I find like I'm more creative at nighttime. So like I love doing ebooks. I love doing crafty kind of, like, it just seems to mellow me a lot more out, versus I like to think about more strategies in the morning.
I'm the same. And it's so cool that you know that about yourself, because then you can structure your tasks accordingly. So you're actually working with your natural inclinations for that time of day.
Yeah, I'm still like finessing it, but I'm starting to see like my brain trying to think of strategies in the middle of the night. Like it just doesn't. Sometimes like, it pops in my brain being like, why didn't I think of that? I'm trying to go this route where, why am I not even staying in this route? Sometimes I'll have those moments, but it's because I'm sitting there doing creative things. Like my brain is finally like kind of released a little bit. And then that's when the strategy starts to pick in. So
that's kind of like the secret recipe for rest and creativity, is that there's going to be more space in your mind for these strategic things to come in. Like if it's so busy and you're in everything and it's chaos and you're working hard and focusing, there's no space for those creative ideas and nudges and outlets to come through. They'll often come through in the middle of the night, right before bed, or in the shower, or when you're driving. Like that's when your brain is off and there's space for it. So yeah, keep a notebook by your bed. You should do that. Yeah.
No, I get so many like ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll remember that. And the next day, what was that? I'm like, meh. Come back to me. And then it never does. And maybe we should, because I'm looking at the time and I want to, we taught on your book there.
Yeah.
Happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak a little bit more to?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, please share more.
You. The book is kind of, it's been like 2 decades in the making, honestly. I didn't intend it to be a book. I love to tell this story because it's just so ridiculous. When I was in college, finishing up university, right, I had some pretty bad anxiety and I was going through therapy and I was learning a lot through personal development, growth and books and things, because that was all that was really available back then, was like books, right? No internet to speak of. And so in my computer, in a Word document, I started just noting down, like bullet point form, the tools that I was learning that could help me when I had some overwhelm or anxiety, because when those moments popped up for me, I forgot everything. And it was only like later that I learned that the part of your brain that can retrieve information actually turns off when you're in like fight or flight. And so of course I couldn't remember those things.
Yeah.
But I just felt like I was struggling so much and I knew I should know it, but it wasn't accessible to me. So I would just go and open up this document and be like, okay, cool. I'll try that one. Okay. That one didn't work. Here's the next one. Let me try that. Right. And as I continued through adulthood, I continued personal growth. It's just sort of something I've always been interested in. And I would just add things. And whether I learned them from a podcast, a conversation, a book, whether it was just like an epiphany that I had, or someone said something that triggered something, and it just kept growing, this Word doc. And eventually I was like, wow, this is a lot of pages here. And I should really do something with this, because it's been so helpful for me that I know it can be helpful for other people too. Because if I'm not the only person in the world with anxiety who forgets their tools when they're in, crisis state, or even like low grade crisis state, just like feeling overwhelmed, like, oh God, what should I do? I have no idea. Oh, well, take a few breaths, right? Or maybe practice some gratitude. So I eventually, I collected all of these little pieces into the 4 pillars of happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise. They all fit into one of those themes. And so the book is really just set up as those 4 chapters, and each bullet point that was in my Word doc is a page. And then it's coupled with a quote, an affirmation, a journal prompt, a question, something that relates to that thing. And the idea is that you pick it up, read one of the pages, flip through, find something that's going to speak to you that day, and use it either as something to reflect on before bed or first thing in the morning, so that you can kind of keep it top of mind for the day. And there's all kinds of different topics in there, but it's just a tool to help you live better, live an extraordinary life, but without having to do anything crazy to get there.
Love that. And any of the listeners listening on actually, maybe I'll just put it in the chat too.
Yeah.
Let me just open it. It's right here, looking at the front here is the name of the book, but just let me put it in the chat. So anybody listening on the fly, they can grab the link to the book.
Totally.
And you mentioned that they can get it on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo, Walmart, Target, anywhere.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I grabbed it. There we go.
Awesome.
The chat here for everybody. It's just pushing out for everybody. And then we also have, that's kind of gearing through. There was the other item here, the framework.
Yeah, so that's
the framework that we chatted on. You want to tell everybody about that?
The one-to-one coaching. That's my favorite offering right now. I call it Time Magic. It went through a few renditions of like, what do I call this thing that like doesn't feel boring. Basically, it's hard. I think it's really hard for people to commit to taking time to do something, to learn about time when they feel like they don't have enough time, you know? So I always say, if you spend 2 hours with me, you'll get an hour back in your day every single day from the tools you're learning. So it's well worth the time you're spending. But we go through and we start with a quiz to figure out like what personality type they are, so I can develop a toolkit specifically for them. We talk a lot about weekly planning, self-care practices, boundary setting, and do a lot of breaks in between to integrate what you're learning and also to implement the tools. So at the end of the time together, we sit down, do a couple of things, and we meet up 2 weeks later so that we can check in, like, what happened with these past 2 weeks? What tools have you tried? What have you not? Where do you need further support? Can I offer some more tools? Because I always want to just like give and give and give, but sometimes it's too much all in one session and you need a break to like try them.
A little break.
Yeah. So no, it's super fun, and it's totally personalized to each person. Like, what are their external circumstances that they can't change? How many kids do they have? What is their job like? How much support do they have in their circle? You know, like, what are the time commitments that they have? What do they want to do that they're not doing? All of these different pieces come together, and they walk away with this feeling really confident and solid that they're able to do the things they want to do without feeling stressed out. And we eliminate a lot of that guilt through the session too.
Love that.
Yeah.
I always say everyone needs a coach.
Yes. Totally.
Doesn't matter if you're in business, life coaching, whichever, everyone needs somebody to talk to. And one of the previous shows we mentioned, like, it's okay to kind of go through the ebbs and flows of like meeting other coaches, because sometimes it takes time to find the right fit for you, or counselor.
Exactly.
Alon, who was a counselor, and that was one of the other topics that we kind of touched on as well. It's just kind of like when you're looking for a service or even a piece of clothing, you want to try it to see, make sure it fits.
Yeah. It's not like if you go into a store and you find a t-shirt that's not quite right, you're like, I'm done with t-shirts. No more t-shirts for me. You know, like, you're not going to find the right one in the first time necessarily. The same thing is true with a therapist, a coach, a life partner, like a friend, all the things.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
So always make sure you also try to go on discovery calls too, and just get those little kind of connection pieces. Yeah. I'm just looking at the time. I thought maybe we can end with kind of wrapping up on like mindset and positive thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like right now I've been meeting a lot of different entrepreneurs, moms, parents, and unfortunately with the market here all over the world, Canada, it's been interesting for a lot of entrepreneurs. I know a lot of people are losing clients left, right, and center. It seems like I just feel like we all just need to ride the wave. And one thing, like what we're doing, is fixing our systems, a slight rebrand, I would say, and thinking of different kind of strategies of adding on more services so we can accommodate more to these changes. But do you have any tips and tricks for a positive mindset?
Mindset is something that is integral for no matter what you're doing in life, right? It's one of those pieces that is a constant practice. And the biggest piece of it for me is just remembering that you can control it and that your mindset dictates every piece of your life. So there's a lot of benefit to mastering the mindset and to being in control of the thoughts that are going through your head, because they do present your reality, but it's also an enormous task to be focused on that all the time. It's exhausting, right? So when I'm first talking to people about mindset, the thing I try to get like clear on is that it's always impacted, like it's always there. Mindset is always there, but it doesn't need to be top of mind all the time. It's good enough to start small. Yes. It's good enough to catch yourself if you're having a bad moment and have some tools to change that mindset. I even learned one from my hypnotist the other day about like when I go into stories and spinning about self-worth, right? As a business owner, like, oh, my product's not valuable. Oh, no one's going to buy it. Blah, blah, blah. Like we all have these stories, even though like people are buying it and it's fine. We still have them.
Yes.
She's like, just grab something, like whatever, and just slowly start to move it from hand to hand. And what this does is it like disrupts your brain pattern. So the story stops, right? It's the same thing. It's not necessarily demanding of yourself to have a positive, growth focused, abundant mindset all the time. It's noticing where you're at, and in that moment, just making a small shift. Of course, you need to know the tools or learn the tools that work for you. But one thing I heard that really stuck with me was, if you imagine a scale of emotions, right? And you can find these on the internet. They're like high emotions are like love, gratitude, whatever. And then you go down and down and down. And at a certain point, it's like neutral emotions. And then you get into like fear, hatred, resentment. Wherever you're at on that spectrum of emotions, you don't need to shoot for the love and gratitude. You literally just need to shoot for the next level up. Just
Interesting.
the next emotion up, right? Something different than where you're at. And that is a mindset win. And the more that you do it, the easier it becomes, because if we can move something into the subconscious mind, it becomes a habit. We don't need to think of it anymore. And mindset's the same. We can do that with our mindset. And one tool that I find very effective for that personally is hypnosis.
Never tried
hypnosis. Yeah, I love it.
That's so neat.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Yeah, I find that's definitely something I've had to master along the way, but I'm not by any means by any expert. But I feel like as I built this for the last 5 years, having like a strong mindset really helps you push forward, because entrepreneurship is hard. Parenting is hard. So the combination of the two is just, how can you look more positive forward in whatever shape and form that might look like to you, will help you kind of take that one negative step back forward again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jill, for coming on the show. I'm so excited for your book. I'll have to get it. And I'm coming on your podcast. Let's just quickly talk on that before we jump off here. Everyone can come and see your podcast at Grow Like a Mother. I'll put that in your social media link down below as well for everybody. But do you have a range with guests on the show, just for anybody kind of thinking of listening, what they're going to expect?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, I have business owners like yourself who come on and share about their journey. I have people who are in the parenting space. I actually had someone who was on specifically to talk about ADHD in kids and raising them. And I have people talking about lots. I have so many sort of woo people now that I started a Woo Woo Wednesday segment. So we talk about like energetics and manifesting and dreams and crystals. And then we also talk about growth and habits and mindset a lot, and feminine power. Some people come on and talk about it. Literally runs the gamut, which is so fun. I'm in season 3, so there's a lot of episodes on a lot of different topics there. There's certainly something for everybody, but it's focused and geared towards moms who want to work on themselves and remember who they are outside of that role of mom.
Love that. And we chatted on time management and imposter syndrome. Yeah. So if anyone wants to, when is that going live?
Oh, soon.
I know we timed everything in accordance. So anyone listening,
I'm curious. I'll fill you in after. We'll get the exact date, but it's soon.
Perfect. And I'll put it in the chat for everybody listening. But yeah, I'm going on Jill's podcast too.
Part 2 conversation.
I'm excited. Well, thank you everyone for listening today. Thank you everyone at the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Next week, we have Nadine coming back, who is a life coach, mom coach, all of the great things. She comes in every month. So I'm excited to have Nadine back. So with that, next week, remember, your journey is unique and your worth is unquestionable. Thank you again, Jill, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a great conversation.